Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Uncorked with Funny Wine Girl. This is Funny Wine Girl, aka Janine Luby. And as we roll through February, you've heard me talk about it before, but I think it's important to talk about more than once. February is American Heart Month. I am recording this particular episode on Valentine's Day, so I know when you're hearing it will be past, but I hope you had a good Valentine's Day. I am a fan of Valentine's Day, and it's funny because for me, it's never been about romance for years. Even as a kid, I just love giving my family cards, my grandmother, my parents, my brother. I love giving my friends cards. And, I still, this year, I made handmade cards because I'm a dork like that. But because I value that, I appreciate that. So hopefully you had some time. Especially in these times, I think it should be more about love of humanity and kindness and not even people it could be a stranger. I love smiling at people when I'm out for a walk or saying hello because if we lose that human connection, quite frankly, we're in trouble. So, anyway, with that said, I'm continuing the conversation about heart health. Last week, if you did listen, I had Dee Burkins on. She's a woman from the capital region. She's from Albany, and she is someone who was not properly diagnosed. She wasn't diagnosed at all. If you heard her story, for 3 years, she was trying to get her doctor to basically listen to her talk about chest pain, pain in her legs, shortness of breath. And he never once considered the fact that she had a history of heart disease in her family. So after 3 years of frustration, she did finally find the right treatment, the right doctors who gave her what she needed, which was several procedures, and it did help avoid her having a heart attack like her mother and grandmother had. So I do think it's important, as if you listen to the conversation, and even if you didn't, I'll recap and say two main things we talked about: listen to your gut and be your own advocate. And I can tell you right now, with what's going on, if you've listened to my story, I'm getting different heart tests, and again, you have to be your own advocate because unfortunately, healthcare is an interesting situation. Doctors are busy. They have a lot of patients, not a lot of time. And they might just be like, well, that test was negative. And then you have to say, well, okay, what are we doing next? You kind of have to help them drive the train here, so to speak. So this week, I want to continue that conversation about resources, education, prevention, and all that sort of thing. I'm going to introduce my guest now, who is from the American Heart Association, Kristen Martin. Welcome and good morning, Kristen. How are you?
Thank you, Janine. Yeah, thank you for having me on today. I'm Kristen. I'm with the American Heart Association. I am the Northeast Pennsylvania Development Director. I have been in nonprofit for 4 years now. I think the biggest thing I took away from being involved in my local Rotary was I just enjoyed the work we did. And I always said, like, how can I get paid to do this? So I started looking into nonprofits and I ended up at one association and had the opportunity to come over to the American Heart Association last year. And I just feel like this is where I'm supposed to be. Like, I don't feel like I'm just doing a job. I feel like we're really making a difference. So I love it.
Good. And that's so important. I mean, so many people unfortunately don't have that. When you have a job where you actually feel good about it, I mean, that's a really great feeling. For
Mhm.
folks who are listening, I do have a YouTube channel. I know Kristen, she was like, well, we're doing video too. But here's the great part: you get to see lovely Go Red sweater or sweatshirt. It looks really nice. I love it. And I love that. And I want to talk about the Heart Association overall. I know that Go Red, I feel like that particular date has gone past, but the whole month of February is Heart Month. I don't know. I mean, I know you had some notes there. I don't really follow exactly a strict order, but do you mind just sharing a little bit about Go Red? I mean, even though I think the date has passed, it's still an important kind of recognition.
Yeah, so Go Red is actually a movement all year long. So Go Red for Women is a movement. This past Friday, which was February 7th, we had Wear Red Day. So Wear Red Day is the first Friday in February, and it's just a national holiday where we go red, we wear red to raise awareness and education around women's heart health with the American Heart Association celebrating Heart Month. And we wear red to make sure every woman is seen, heard, counted for when it comes to heart health. Every age, every stage, every season. So Wear Red Day is important because it's just that one day that everybody wears red. We had more involvement in Northeastern Pennsylvania this year than any other year. Like, it was
Wow.
overwhelming. We had our Pittston Chamber collaborated with us for a women's lunch and learn where we had Insulaco Development Group sponsor. We had Dr. Nesvetter from Geisinger come, and the response after the lunch and learn, I think, was more important than the entire lunch and learn. And it was how many people said they took away so many things from it, and we have to do more of these. So it was really important. That was where Red Day, Go Red for Women is a movement making a difference. So cardiovascular disease is the #1 killer of women. But we're so underdiagnosed and undertreated. A lot of it has to do with what you just said. We don't pay attention to our own symptoms. Women have more symptoms than men, which you think would be a good thing, right? We have more symptoms when it comes to cardiac arrest and stroke, but we have more symptoms that we push it off like, oh, it's nothing. I have indigestion. Oh, it's nothing. I just had a panic attack, we're told. Well, did you have panic attacks before? That's so you have to advocate for yourself. And that's what Go Red for Women is.
Okay, and you know what? I'm so glad. Here's me, I'm all about supporting women, and that's why I have this podcast. And I did not realize, I'm now I'm being educated, which I love. I was thinking it was that one day. I knew it was Wear Red, but I didn't realize that Go Red was the actual movement.
Mhm.
So I'm happy to hear that. So it's like an ongoing thing. And the fact that you had that locally and there was even more interest this year, I think that's fantastic. What were some of the feedback that you got? Like, I guess maybe you kind of indicated that they just want more of this, right? More education, more events.
Yeah, people had so many questions for her. Dr. Nesvetter spoke great about certain things, and so many people had questions for her. So the feedback was, I didn't know that. But so that's a lot of the education that we do. And just how much it's needed. So these get-togethers, like sometimes we don't want to take time out of our day to go to a lunch or we don't want to do something after work, but these get-togethers are important, especially if it's just education. Anytime you have a doctor come out and be able to speak to you, it's great because, like you said, we're not getting to the doctors all the time when we need to be. Um, a lot of it, so I did a hands-only CPR demonstration. A lot of it was like, oh, I didn't know I could even do that. So you don't have to be CPR certified to perform hands-only CPR on somebody. If somebody has a cardiac arrest in front of you, and their heart stopped, yeah, call 911 and start hands-only CPR. You don't have to be certified to be able to do that.
Oh, wow. I never, now what exactly does that mean? Because I did take, I think it's been a year. I don't know. I actually might even be going on 2 years. I did take a CPR course, that I forget what the organization that offered it, but I've never heard of hands only. What does that, I mean, it might be hard to describe with words, but what does that mean?
Yeah, so not hard to describe at all. So if somebody has a cardiac arrest in front of you, this is our National Lifesavers movement. It's a movement nationwide that the American Heart Association, actually Damar Hamlin, who had a cardiac arrest on the field on Monday Night Football, is an ambassador for us because he was saved by CPR, by an AED. So we have a National Lifesavers movement, and that's to have one person in every household at least know hands-only CPR. So what it is if something happens, call 911, start chest compressions, just chest compressions. So you don't have to do mouth to mouth, you don't have to do anything else. But as long as you know how to do chest compressions, they have a higher chance of survival. And you keep doing that until an ambulance gets there. Sometimes an ambulance isn't going to get there for 10 minutes, maybe, depending on where you live. So you might have to tap somebody in. Like it's hard. You have to deep, hard chest compressions. So you might have to have somebody switch out with you, but you want to keep doing that until somebody who is trained or an ambulance gets there to help.
Now, so for the hands only, is there any education about that? Like if someone was to say, oh, I'm afraid because I don't want to hurt somebody or do whatever, is there videos or does it like just to see what it looks like, what it should look like?
Yeah, so you can go on heart.org/nation. That'll take you right to our National Lifesavers page. It's a 90-second video for you to watch. The best thing about it is it's incorporated into our kids challenge now. So children are learning. So you think like, oh, I know CPR. I just got certified. If something were to happen to my children, I'm good. But what if something were to happen to me? I have 3 children. They're probably going to be like, oh my gosh, what do I do? So that's part of the training too, making sure our children are educated on how to do that. Call 911. You all have phones. Call 911 and start hands only chest compressions until somebody gets there.
Wow, that's fantastic. I think the more that we educate young people, no matter whether it's about mental health, heart health, everything. I mean, they're little people and they need, for themselves or for a friend or like you said, for their mom or dad. They could be the only ones at home. And I think not on top of it being very scary, but they could also maybe help save their parents' life. That's fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, and you don't know when this is going to happen. Like, what if you're at the grocery store? What if you're at church? Um, so it's great. The more people that know this, the more people can respond. And chances are you might have somebody there who is CPR certified. Chances are you might not. So it's never going to hurt for you to do it and save somebody's life. If you don't do it, what's going to happen?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's worth doing it. Well, I will definitely put the link to that particular page that you mentioned so people can check that out. I mean, that's something honestly I had not heard about either. So I think that's wonderful. In terms of women's heart health, I want to go back to that just for a second. So
Mhm.
you had that event for or luncheon, I should say, for Wear Red Day. Are there events that you do? Obviously, it's an ongoing campaign, and I'm sure I know I had included the link, I think, in last week's podcast so that the page on the American Heart Association where it talks about women's heart health. Do you do events all throughout the whole year too that are focused on women's heart health?
Yeah, so we do. I do lots of events. So I've been out. I've been out more in the past month, I think, than I've ever had with any job before, just doing education. So I was just at a company the other day doing a lunch and learn where gave some information on nutrition and tobacco and vaping and heart attack symptoms, that men versus women, and did hands only demonstrations. So if somebody asks me and I can come out and do it, I will. We also have great volunteers in our area. Carmen Passaniti from the Right Center is on our board. He has come out and done CPR demonstrations for people so they know hands only CPR. We have so many volunteers that we work with. We also have cardiologists that are on our board. So we have Dr. Ruiz from Geisinger, who's a huge help. If I need him to come out and speak to the medical aspect that I can't speak to, he can come out and help. So we do plenty of that. If anybody wants to schedule anything, they can reach out. But then we have our events. So we have our Go Red for Women luncheon where people can come and they can attend. And then we have our Heart Walk, which is our more community walk that people can come and they can attend. And they'll get some information there as well.
And that when does that take place?
So the Go Red for Women luncheon is going to be in April 11th of this year. We're anticipating it to be at the venue, just waiting for some contracting to go through. And then May 4th, all Star Wars themed, is going to be our Heart Walk. And same thing, we are going to be at PNC Field this year, same as last year.
May the fourth be with you, huh? That should be a fun. What a great I mean, I'm not a Star Wars person, but my gosh, everybody seems to like to celebrate that. So that should be a fun day to have an event. Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting. We have some surprises. I think I always say the kids are going to be really excited, but I've been speaking to so many adults that are so excited for the Star Wars themed. Like you, I'm not a huge Star Wars fan. I like them, but I'm not like, I don't know everything about them. As I talk to people, though, they're like, oh, may the fourth be with you. I'm like, yes, it's going to be Star Wars themed, and you're going to be so excited.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I mean, the thing about these types of things, I think you don't necessarily have to have been affected by heart disease or someone in your family, or even to be, I mean, yes, while it would be great to if you had a philanthropic heart, or a person that wanted to do good, but even if you're getting people drawn in just because it's a fun theme, they're
Mhm.
there and they're there for a good cause and they're contributing to a good cause. And it takes all of us, I mean, the community. So however we come together for this, I think that's really great. Just the idea of getting people, community is so key, I'm sure. And you probably see that because you're always out in the community.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, even if you've never been affected by heart disease, nobody in your family has heart disease, nobody in your family has had a stroke, you have no symptoms or signs. We still do education on prevention. So, how can you make sure you're staying healthy and you don't end up with these heart diseases? So, we do a lot of prevention, healthy habits. One of the things I like that the American Heart Association posts on our American Heart Association Pennsylvania page, post on our Facebook and Instagram is our life essential eights, healthy habits, but they also post how to do those healthy habits, right? Because we can say eat better, but what does that look like? We can say get better sleep, but then they'll post like, okay, maybe just start a habit, and then that creates the, routine of doing this. So put your alarm on at 9 o'clock so that you shut down your screen time, no TV, no telephone, nothing like that. Then when you create that habit, it becomes routine, and then you're able to manage it. So they post little things like that, which I thought was pretty cool. Exercising, obviously, nobody wants to, well, some people do, I'm sure, but I don't want to go out and exercise, but they'll post like, create the habit, maybe just start with a 10-minute walk. Well, then that 10 minutes becomes 20 minutes, and then it becomes part of your routine. So our life essential eight's really nice. And if you follow them, they'll post things that makes it easy for you to attain those.
Yeah, that I mean that is difficult, and you're right. It's especially as women, because I'm someone who's perimenopause age, and I'll follow, see things on Instagram, and I've had speakers here, guests on my podcast talking about different things that are healthy for us, that habits we need to make. But it's not easy doing that. Like, and one of the biggest things, even like I think the thing is, a lot of times we know what we ought to be doing. It's just getting into that routine. Like you mentioned, screen time. I know that for sleep, that is so important that we need to get off that screen. But I'm guilty of this often. If I'm on a roll and I'm reading articles, like, whatever it is, I might be sitting looking at my phone at 11 o'clock and then just putting it down. And that I know that's not good for me. So you're right. I think offering those tips, and, I mean, most of us know it's not good, but we just need to really get it into play to stop
Yeah.
doing that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm guilty. I'll sit down at night and I'll be like, okay, I'm going to watch one episode of this show. And then it's like 3 episodes later, I'm like, I'm not getting any sleep and I need to know what happens next. No, you don't need to know what happens next. It'll still be on the television tomorrow for you. Um, and I do have people. So I started eating healthier for personal reasons and things, and meal prepping on Sundays. And one of my friends says, boy, you have 3 kids. Like, how do you do it? Well, I created a routine where I just pick 2 meals, 2 simple meals that are gluten and dairy free, because that's what I'm doing. And I make those, and I make a big portion. If my kids want to eat them, they can. If they don't have to eat it. But I'll make stuff for them too that's easy throughout the week, because we're always on the run with sports. So it's just taking that big idea and making it smaller and realistic. Like, I'm going to lose 20 pounds. Well, let's try 5 first. And once you hit that, then you keep going. So it's just making those things obtainable.
Yeah. I mean, that's something I have put on weight to the past few years. I really do need to lose weight. If you don't mind me asking, for selfish reasons, and then other people listening, what are the meals you're making? I'm just curious.
So so I don't remember all of them, like the names of them, but one of my favorites is a Big Mac salad. So I love a good Big Mac. I'm not going to lie, but getting rid of the bread and everything, and obviously not eating fast food, Big Mac salad has become one of my favorites. Chicken fried rice. So any chicken fried rice or stir fry. So my kids love when I do stir fry. I just, whatever meat I have available, rice, and then whatever veggies. We just throw it in a pan and make it. And you either use use your Asian sauces or use your Mexican sauces. And my kids love Mexican food. So even that Mexican I'll make like taco meat and enchiladas and things like that. And I'll pre-prep them and freeze them. So there's a lot of things that I do that just makes it easier throughout the week for all of us.
Yeah, that Big Mac salad, it's so funny. I bought the dressing with the intent that I was going to make that, because I saw that on Facebook, and I'm like, "Oh yeah, that looks good." I haven't I haven't done it yet, but that does look good. Do you, for the meal prep like that, do you ever do I like easy, because I'll admit I can be very lazy. Do you ever
Mhm.
do anything with the crock pot to make like the bulk a little bit easier when you're prepping?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I do chicken fajitas and the crock pot all the time. So chicken fajitas is huge, because then they can put it on a tortilla, they can put it on a salad. I just eat the meat and veggies. We also do like pulled pork in the crock pot, just put that in the morning, roast, whatever kind of meat. Like I'm good with just picking whatever kind of meat I have available and throwing veggies in with it and making a meal out of it. Also soups. So I found some soups that they like, that I'll just throw everything in a freezer bag, and then when I'm ready to make it, just put it in the crock pot that day.
Yeah, that's I have made like pulled chicken in the crock pot, and I always
Mhm.
find that that comes out tasty.
Yeah.
It's just I again, like you said, it's like taking that time. A lot of people use Sunday as their meal prep time so that they can it's done. Then you don't have to think about it. If you don't have the time, you don't have to worry about it. I will admit that's the one way I've gotten out of the habit. But when I made oatmeal, steel cut oats in the
Hmm.
crock pot, that's now I'm back to my poor habits in the morning with my coffee. Like this morning, I had a chocolate chip cookie with my coffee, which is not what is not heart healthy, listeners.
I had peanut butter smidgen, so don't tell on me.
Okay, but it's Valentine's Day, so you're just giving yourself a little treat.
Yeah.
But to your point, it's true if you have it prepared. Because when I had the steel cutouts prepared, I had like 4 or 5 containers for the week, and then I would just open them, and that was my breakfast because I didn't even have to think about it or do it. And for I know steel cutouts are healthy, and I would add maybe some honey or I love cinnamon. I'm a huge cinnamon fan.
Me
Sprinkling
too.
it, yeah, I love it. I think it's underrated.
Hmm. Cinnamon and brown
Totally.
sugar. I became a big fan of brown sugar in my coffee too.
Oh wow. Okay. Yeah, I like that sprinkled on certain recipes. I think that adds a nice flavor. But you can put and then oatmeal is something that's healthy and you could put fruit in there. You could put
Hmm.
all kinds of things that are healthy. Like I was putting in chia seeds. Now, you could go down a rabbit hole with flax seeds, chia seeds, all of these things that I'll be honest, that's where I get overwhelmed and then I go, "Okay, I'll go back to my cookie." That's
Hmm.
not the thing to do.
Yeah, so you have to make it easy. And you know what? I have to give my dietitian credit, Brooke Evans. She has helped me so much. Like my peanut butter smidgen this morning, I'm eating it, and then afterwards I felt guilty. And she'll be like, listen, a treat here and there is not going to kill you, but keep those healthy habits because once you do too many of those treats, but she said pick something that's easy. Overnight oats. I wasn't a fan of the texture at first. Now that I've eaten them for quite a while, they're so easy. And I do the chia seeds, but I don't sit there. I can't sit there and like measure everything out. If I do, then I'm not going to do it. So I kind of just take a teaspoon and put it in. Who knows how much I'm getting fiber, everything, but like I'll make the overnight oats and put them in the fridge and have those in the morning so that I'm eating. Because a lot of times we skip a meal, right? Especially moms in the morning. I know I'm getting 3 kids ready and everything. By the time I eat breakfast, it's already 11 o'clock. So having something that you can take on the go or having something that's just easily accessible to you, and you don't have to do it all in one day. So what I found is if I do some grocery shopping on Saturday for an hour when I have time and then meal prep on Sunday, I'm not taking so much time doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, and that those are great tips. I'm not a mom, but I'm just like a kid myself, so I'm hard to raise. But no, in all sincerity, I love what you're saying about this meal prep because it is as I'm dealing with some different health issues and just knowing that I have to get control of my weight because it's over the past 5 to 7 years gone up quite a bit. So it is important to make some alterations and start small so that I'm not because I think that's like you said before, oh, I'm going to lose 20 pounds when you make the bigger like picture, you really let's face it, change has to happen how you typically in a small way, like saying, okay, I'm not going to do all of this at once because I know for me anyway, I know I'm not going to do that. But if I've been telling myself, okay, you need to get back to making those the oatmeal, at least that's one meal then that's good, and then maybe get back into the habit. So when that's a habit or a routine, like you said, then maybe I could focus on the lunch or the dinner. I mean, I'm not going to do everything at once because I know myself and I don't want to abandon every healthy habit.
Yeah, and I haven't done added sugar in I don't even know how many years, like in my coffee or anything like that. And I started that with 1 week. So it's been 4 years now, probably. Before COVID, I started that. And it started with me saying, okay, I'm not going to put sugar in my coffee for 1 week and let's see how I do. I think I struggled that week. It was probably the worst struggle I've had, not having that creamer, the added sugar in my coffee. Now I have oat milk and I'm good with that.
Yeah. Yeah, you just have to get used to. Now that's one thing. I never put sugar in my coffee. I just do like 1% milk and I'm happy. But
Mhm.
I tried oat milk and I just couldn't get into that. That's when I even through the years, I remember years ago when soy milk was so big, I tried soy
Mhm.
milk and I just got sick of it. I was doing okay with it, but then of course you're reading different things about soy and you're like, okay, what do I believe? Yeah, some things
Yeah.
about it not being healthy, but I wish I could get into almond milk or even almond butter. I'm a big
Mhm.
peanut butter fan, and the almond butter, I'm like, it's not for me. But maybe sometimes I just have to grow up and say, okay, it's healthier for you.
Yeah, and I mean, that's where we're not experts, right? Like, I'm not a dietitian, I'm not a doctor. These are things that I've been told by dietitians or doctors. And I think it's to each their own. Like, I didn't like oat milk at first, but I was like, I need something a little sweeter than regular milk. Or now I'm doing the non-dairy just for personal reasons. But I think Dr. Ruiz, the cardiologist from Geisinger that I work with, I think he said it best. Like when you eat healthy, everything else kind of falls into place, right? So if you're eating healthy, our Life Essential 8 with the American Heart Association, you can also control your cholesterol by eating healthy. You can control your blood sugar, manage your blood pressure. Like all these things fall into place and it starts with healthy eating. And if you're not sure what's healthy, start reading the labels, educate yourself. We have a lot of resources on heart.org, but even talk to a dietitian or a nutritionist, somebody who's just going to give you those little tips, even if it's one conversation for 30 minutes. You make 5 different changes that can help.
Yeah, absolutely. And, in January, about 3 weeks ago, I think it was 3 or 4 weeks ago, I had my friend Mickey Orlowski and Emily Fasciana, who are registered dietitians, they were on talking about
Mhm.
that. So, and they have their own podcast. So I'll give them a shout out. And I'll put that link in the show notes because I know Emily does online nutritional counseling. So as to
Mhm.
Kristen's point, even just maybe it doesn't have to be something that you're doing the whole year, but even a few sessions where you're learning some things, and once you put them into play you'll see the difference. I agree with what you just said about Dr. Ruiz's advice, because I think so much of how we feel too, just going throughout the day, is tied to what we're eating. I know for myself, like some of the nights it's like a little too much wine or a little too much junk. If you don't have the right food, if you're not eating healthy, then you're feeling it too. You're definitely feeling maybe sluggish, or as you said, really key, all the other important elements like your cholesterol, your the blood sugar, all that stuff. And to your earlier point about sleep, even I know that not
Mhm.
getting enough sleep can become a risk, right, for your heart.
Yeah, so getting healthy sleep, that's a big one, especially with kids and the electronics. So I used to work at Lens Crafters a while ago, and I loved the technology aspect of everything. And when we first started bringing out the blue light filter on the glasses and everything, I felt like such a dork because I was like, I want to know everything. This is so interesting to me. But it's true. Like you see kids on their phones until 10, 11 o'clock at night, and then they're waking up in the morning and they're like zombies. Well, it's because they're on those electronic phones have a blue light filter on them. So if you don't have it on, turn it on. Little PSA right there. But they're watching TV, and not all blue light is bad, but we're on electronics all day that when we go to shut our brain off at night, our brain is still thinking it's daylight because that bright light just all day long. So I could talk about that forever. I get really excited. Um, but yeah, it's we're not getting healthy sleep. And then as women, I always say my husband can fall asleep right away. As women, we think about everything for the next day, right? So even something like having a notebook next to your bed, jotting down some things like, oh, tomorrow I have to do this. Oh, tomorrow I have to do that. Jot them down in a notebook real quick, and then you're able to sleep a little longer. So little things, some people like to journal, but adults should be getting 7 to 9 hours of sleep. And I know I'm sure not getting that.
Yeah. I do okay, but I find that I'm waking up now. So like and then, not even just to go to the bathroom, it's just waking up. Like now it's almost
Mhm.
like routine where it's like usually it's 2 o'clock, maybe it's 2:30. And on most nights it's good that I can just fall back to sleep. But it's
Mhm.
those bad nights. Once you like say hello to your brain, you're like, well, hello, let's have a conversation. Once you allow yourself to start thinking about stuff, then that, and for me anyway, that, and I think most of us, once you allow that, then you're kind of in trouble, because I've had nights where I'm like, okay, now I'm really going to wake myself up by having thoughts about, things that are bothering me or that I'm thinking about or whatever. And then it could be an hour, an hour and a half before I fall back. And it's like, oof,
Mhm.
don't engage, just don't engage.
Yeah. It's funny because I used to tell my kids, like when they would wake up in the middle of the night, I'm like, just think happy thoughts, lay down, think happy thoughts, go back to bed. So now I try to do that. It's like counting sheep. You lay down and you're like, okay, one, two, but it does. Once you wake up at that 3 a.m. mark, it's like hard to go back to sleep.
Yeah. And I think breathing too. I mean, as someone, I do laughter yoga and like we do a lot of breathing. And I think sometimes it's anxiety, or the more we start to think, maybe even just taking a couple of, a couple breaths, just like with meditation or whatever. And that's a simple thing that everyone can do that might just help us calm, feel calmer to go to sleep. Yeah.
Yeah, breathing techniques. And somebody sent me a couple links on like mindful meditation. I didn't think I would be a fan. I was like, it just doesn't seem like me, doesn't seem like something I would get into. It really helps, especially if you're having a stressful day or a stressful week. 10, 15 minutes like that, it can give you a nice refresh.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, as we start to wrap up here, I love you've given us a lot of really good information, and I will put the links in the show notes to the hands. Is it hands only? Is that what it's called? Hands only?
Hands only CPR, so
Hands
Nation of
only.
Lifesavers.
Okay. I'll put that in there. And then of course the Go Red. And then April 11th is that will be in Northeast PA, or is that right?
Yep. So I can send you the link for the Heart Walk and the Go Red for Women up here in Northeast PA. So we can attach that in there as well.
Okay, that's wonderful. Anything else, any other points? Because I know you had put together some thoughts beforehand that you just want to say, okay, will not forgive myself if we don't talk about this.
Yeah. So I didn't want to get into stroke too much because May is stroke month. So we do a lot of awareness around that. But I would be remiss if I, left this and everybody listening without giving some symptoms. So for women, especially heart attack, if you're looking at symptoms, think nausea, vomiting, jaw, neck, upper back pain, chest pain, not always chest pain though, so keep that in mind. Shortness of breath, fainting, indigestion is huge. So if you're talking about heart attack or if you're talking about stroke, keep that nausea, vomiting in mind. Stroke, a big thing is just remember fast for men or women. Your face drooping, your arm weakness, your speech difficulty, trouble walking. So just keep some of those symptoms in mind. And I always say, this is something that Dr. Nesvetter said, and it stuck with me. So a lot of times women don't go to the doctor because we don't want to go and have nothing wrong. And we kind of feel silly, but you're better off going and having nothing wrong than not going and having something wrong.
Yeah, that is true. And it's funny because I had an echocardiogram and a stress test about a month ago. And when I was being ordered for it, I kind of said to my doctor, not because I was worried about being silly, but this is cost conscious because, healthcare can be expensive. I'm like,
Mhm.
I'm going to pay all this out to find out nothing's wrong. And she's like, well, wouldn't you rather that? And like, I get that. And believe me, I do get that. But at the same time, I'll just play devil's advocate. You don't want anything to be wrong, but you do want answers. That's where it's like, because a lot of times, but yes, I agree 100%. So if you do think something's wrong, don't worry about never feel silly. It's your body, it's your life, and you need to take care of your health. But sometimes it gets frustrating when you're just not getting answers, because for me, speaking for me, then you're like a little scared or a little worried, like, okay, I'm not getting answers and I'm still feeling a certain way that's off. I really hope we can get to the answer soon, because then at least you can start treating it. You know what I mean? Whatever it is that needs to happen or whatever. But yes, 100% go. Don't ever worry about feeling silly, or that nothing's wrong, because you'd rather find out. Yeah, get the help that you need now, rather than letting things get worse if there is something there. Yeah, that
Mhm.
is such great advice. Yeah. Well, I want to thank you so much, Kristen. This is such valuable information. I will definitely put all those links in the show notes and as I share the podcast. And I look forward to actually, I'd love to go to the luncheon. I'll have to check out April 11th and see when that is. That sounds great. But thank you again. I really do appreciate you taking the time today. And hopefully people will take time to check out the links and learn, a little bit more about what you had to say today.
Thank you for having me. This is fun.
Good, good. Thank you. And for my listeners, if you didn't listen to last week's episode, please go back, give it a listen. Dee Burkins shared her story. And you might be able to relate to it, especially if you have someone in your family who's had heart disease, or if you're worried about some symptoms, just to listen to her, because I think she says it from, a patient perspective of what she went through. And now she's 78 years old and she is healthy. She's had bypasses and she is just a vivacious woman who is also very positive, which I think also helps people's health outcomes if they have the right attitude. So give that a listen. She was such a pleasure. And thank you again so much for listening. As I always say, keep on listening. I'm going to have someone from maternal and family health on in a couple of weeks as well, talking about what they do for women and families. And regardless of politics, if we do continue to see loss of funding for different things, I want to make sure I give a voice to those organizations so that folks listening hear how maybe they can help the organization or how they can get help from that organization. So and I will have Christine Souza on next week. Christine actually introduced me to Dee Burkins. So Christine has a book coming out February 25th. So that will be a fun listen too. So as I always say every week, I appreciate you from the bottom of my heart and the bottom of my wine glass.